Ahoj, tak všichni online?
Já jo.
Taky.
A ty, babi?
Babi,
musíš tam na to kliknout. Ne na to
babi,
druhý.
musíš tam na tu ikonku.
Sluchátko, babi.
Jeden svět, festival dokumentárních filmů o lidských právech. 10. května až 6. června Jeden svět.cz pořádá Člověk v tísni.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers. Welcome to the 23rd edition of the documentary film festival One World. We're having the second day of our festival, and I'm saying you hello from our studio where we organize debates and Q&As following the screenings. I welcome Ivana Marina Kragic, the director of None of Your Business. You can also join the debate by asking your questions on Facebook, YouTube, or Slido. You can read the QR code, which should be right now popping up on the screen, or you can just use slide.com and type in Jeden svět basic password to start asking your questions. Now, Ivana Marin Kragic, hello, hi, welcome.
Hi.
I will start with first question. The topic of your film could be defined as a love story between two nuns in a Croatian convent. Why did you choose this topic? What was your inspiration, your motivation, and how did you find those protagonists who are very nice and very prominent figures? So, what would you say?
So my first motivation was to build a story around personal freedom and decisions we make in our life, and where those decisions will lead us as a result. And how I met them, it was I think around 9 years ago. It was summertime. I was at my vacation on the island of Corčula. That's actually where I first time met Marita and one of the protagonists. At that moment, she left the convent for 2 months from that moment. And that's when I first time heard about her story. And then a year after, I was introduced with Fani as well. And then the whole story came together, and they were from the beginning were open to share the story, and that's how we started with the idea of the film.
How long did it take until you started shooting the film, and how long did the shooting take?
So it took a few years for them to adjust on regular life, because they were in a convent around 7 years. So when you're living that long period in that restricted, closed society as a convent, then you need time to adjust to the life here, take it for granted as a regular situations like finding apartment, job, financial security, and so on. So it took them a few years to fully open and be comfortable in front of the camera. And also during that early stage of development, it took a lot to develop the script and start with the first financials. So after 4 years of the initial idea, we raised the first fundings, and that's when we start project development, and then later.
What really struck me about the film was the form that you chose, using the archive footage to show their personal history. It's not using typical footage. You're using your own pictures, your own photographs. How come you chose this particular form?
So from the initial researchers and our first conversations, which I used a lot for the script development, it was helpful for me and for them to go through their private archive with the photo albums and diaries and so on. And it was kind of intimate atmosphere, which I wanted to kind of keep and transfer in film, so the audience can feel same intimacy I had at that moment. and I was taking conversation with them. So for me, every time we talk about the past, we open that photo album. That was the initial idea, to try to combine the today events and the past events.
Jste natáčeli vlastně ty hrané scény, které jste pak asi
Did you shoot some of the staged scenes and then you took pictures, you photographs? Were these actors, those protagonists or those women featured on those pictures, or nuns?
I'm not sure that I catch the whole question.
Were there nuns or actors?
No, so the reconstructed scenes, it's all with actors and extras, and we were trying to do very precise reconstruction of each element in a film, coming from the costume to each props. For example, a mobile phone, it was the exact model and color she used at that time. Actors had to look the same as they were looking at that period where they were living in a convent, everything. So, yeah, it was staged for the reconstruction.
Natáčeli jste opravdu v tom klášteře, kde...
Did you also shoot in the convent they lived in the particular one, or it was impossible?
It's not possible to shoot in a convent at all, but there is some footage, documentary footage, which is connected to the real place and location. Interiors were shot in a real convent, which is not in use anymore, and it's not in church property. So we basically just adjust the rooms to make it more like their own convent at that time, but that was actually real convent.
Já bych se taky chtěla zeptat, protože ten film je také hodně o tom, jak ženy v klášteře můžou vlastně spolu navázat nějaké vztahy, ať už je to milostné
the possibility of relationships, be it friendly or romantic relationships between nuns. The story that you depicted, is it extraordinary or is it quite usual for two women starting to live together and meeting in a convent? Did you also focus on the topic of abuse that was somehow also depicted in the film?
So it's not so definitely common in Croatia for nuns to be in a relationship. Catholic Church is very strong here, and it's forbidden to have sexuality while you're under a church institution. So you need to obey on the purity, which means that you cannot have intimacy with other person anymore. So it's very extreme for this Eastern Europe, definitely. Next part of the question was about the love. So it is an unusual love story, but my outer focus was more on the personal freedom and our decision how we're gonna live our life, and not how the society or political influence should direct our way how we live. And the last part of the question, sorry.
Určitě, to bylo o tom,
yes, it was about the topic of abuse, because you implied that one of the protagonists went through it.
So it's my narrative. I saw it from the two perspectives of the two individuals searching for their purpose in life, and listening their testimonies before they come together in one story. To me, was more opening topics and opening public debate on the abuse, on the personal right to choose, on your way to live. I didn't want to jump too much in political perspective of the institution. It was more from the personal perspective.
Zjišťovala jste i taky třeba, proč obě protagonistky vlastně šly
find out why both of the protagonists joined the church? What was their motivation? And is it usual, is it current for the Croatians to somehow free themselves from their dictated lifelines or life stories?
From probably as we learn from the film, there's plenty different situations and decisions why women decide to take their life in a convent. From their perspective, it was in 90s, so we need to also consider it was a wartime, and they were coming from the small places which were very poor. So it was in a way kind of for them escape from the very local, conservative and very strong Catholic environments, trying to break out and find some purpose more than just the very strict rules of the small societies where they were born.
Já tady mám už otázky i z publika.
I have some questions from the audience, so I will read them out. What was your reactions, or what was the reactions after the premiere in Croatia? And do the protagonists like the final result? And also, were there any reactions from the church?
Protagonists were very happy with the first cut and the final cut, which was very relieved for me. And premiere in Zagreb, it was also world premiere, and it was really beautiful audience. I was actually very surprised and very happy because they definitely deserved that kind of strong support as they received. And from the reactions of the church, there were no public reactions so far.
There's another question from the audience. What's your perspective on gay and lesbian relations in the church? Are there any different?
In a Catholic church in Croatia, there is forbidden any kind of relationship. But on the other side, I'm not talking generally, right? On the other side, church is very against homosexuality in Croatia. So we have a lot of public discourse and discussions and what's the word in English, but lately there is a lot of public dialogue against the homosexual couples or right for the females. So while I was shooting the film, it was very connected to the topics which are currently shaking Croatia and the region.
I read somewhere that last week adoption for same-sex couples were legalized, and in Croatia you also have a sort of registered partnership institute. Could you comment on this? Do you think it is a step forward, or it will still take very long and these changes aren't that much important after all?
I think the changes are happening, and they're happening in positive directions, but it's taking time, of course, because nothing goes over the night. But it's good to talk about it, to put it in a public dialogue, and more we talk about it and discuss it, there's more chance that things will change.
I have another question from the audience. In Croatia, generally, what's the acceptance of the LGBT community? You in part already answered the question, but do you think that the Catholic Church changes the acceptance or the view on the LGBT community? Are there any public interventions from the part of the Church against the LGBT community?
I mean, Turkey is having a strong influence in Croatian politics, but then on the other side, we are in Europe, so we cannot be so exclusive. So because of that part, I think there still the movements are going in positive directions, slowly. So lately, Church is losing. It's not so strong power as before the European Union. I think it's still in the process.
Chtěla jsem se taky zeptat, jestli jste přemýšlela třeba o tom, že byste natočila nějaký další film?
Did you think about shooting another film? Would you maybe focus on convents, on their functioning in Croatia? Also, from the general point of view, not only looking at relationships, but general at the institution as such. Is it a topic that you're interested in?
Well, I mean, it will be interesting to walk inside the church with a camera, but that's not so possible because the way the functioning is very close. But then on the other side, for this story, for me, was that personal freedom, which I found it out as a universal story, and I wanted to show the positive way, not the what's wrong in the world, like it's how we can change it. And I think the life of Marita and Fani is very positive example how we should stand up for ourselves, and that's how it's possible to make changes. That's the direction which inspired me, not the institution from the political point of view.
Jste stále v kontaktu?
Are you still in contact with both of the protagonists?
Yes, I mean, after 9 years hanging out together all the time, you can become friends after all, especially after premiere, so yeah, we're in contact.
Mm-hmm. A stále žijí na Korčule, nebo je to vlastně takhle?
Do they still live in Korčula?
Jak kouká teďka vlastně okolí,
když how are they?
Sorry. Yes, they live in Korčula, happy with their family. So I think that was the most important for them, to get acceptance for the family, and then after they also got accepted for the society. So yeah, it took time, but they were very with their decision, and I think they're living freely finally, as they dreamed.
Mám tady ještě další otázku z publika.
I have another question from the audience about the other forms of depicting the picture. Did you have any other forms in your mind?
If it's thinking about these reconstructions, actually I come with that decision very, very early, like in the script stage, in the script development stage.
A myslíš, že by se změnila nějak ta forma, nebo jestli třeba i napadlo samotný protagonistky, by si třeba nechtěli zahrát nějaké ty scény, nějak se jakoby zrekonstruovat?
Maybe showing the protagonists themselves as actors?
I don't think they could do it that way, because they're now much older than they were in that time, and these actors are having the same age as they were in that time. That's the first thing. They change physically, and it takes a lot of focus and concentration to do this kind of scenes, no matter if they are really playing themselves. And that will be completely different genre, and I wanted to keep it this aesthetic. So make this decision strongly in early stage and stuck with it.
Já určitě se mi myslím, že to považuji za
I think it was a good choice, a very good decision, because it gives the film a very interesting form and feel. It's super interesting to follow this reconstructed storyline. I think it's really attention grabbing. So, congrats. We have 1 minute left, so I will end up with one last question. And anyone seeing this can still ask some more. And the question is whether you want to follow up in the topic of the LGBT community issues in your documentaries, or if you have any other projects already in progress.
I have another project. This time it's fiction film based also on the true events, and for me as author, I always connect to the social stories and current topic which we are surrounded. So for me, this LGBT or church is just the subjects. To me, it's more. I like to open to the personal level, and then from the local perspective, big to global context.
A zeptám se možná i tak osobně, jestli vy třeba
And one personal question,
tím, že byste třeba uvažovala o tom, že byste šla do kláštera.
Yourself thoughts of joining a convent yourself? Was it a topic in your family? If it's not too personal.
No, it's not personal. I never thought about it. I'm not even religious, so I don't believe in God.
To si myslím, že u nás v České republice nejsme úplně
I think it's quite similar for us in the Czech Republic. I mean, quite different because we are not so much religious, so to see a love story from a convent, it was quite a surprise to our Czech viewers, I think. We have no more questions, it seems, so do you want to add something to the very end, Ivana?
Oh, I have no clue what to say, except of thank you so much for having me and my film in your program.
Já taky moc děkuju. My jsme
Thank you.
Film Miluji bližní svou mezinárodní
premiéře. The film
díky, že
an international premiere. So thank you, Ivana, for giving us this wonderful opportunity. And now I would like to invite our guests to other films that you can see live, and you can also enjoy live debates till the 11th till the 21st May. And if you don't have that much time, you can see them afterwards on our website. So thank you very much for your attention and see you soon.